roll credits, we're diving into the Mandalorian and Grogu, the Star Wars duo that made the jump from streaming phenomenon to the big screen. And, usually in Hollywood, there is this ingrained, almost pathological logic when it comes to this stuff.
Oh, definitely.
Right? Like, when a property jumps from television to the cinema, the assumption is that the budget just has to inflate into the stratosphere.
Yeah, the studio logic is that cinematic scale requires burning hundreds of millions of dollars just to artificially bulk up the visuals. We see it constantly. A studio takes a tight, contained narrative, hands the director $250 million, and suddenly the intimacy is just drowned out by CGI armies.
Exactly. Yeah, we are looking at a stack of California Film Commission reports, production notes, and behind-the-scenes breakdowns for this film, and the numbers just defy all modern blockbuster logic. I mean, Disney spent $166.4 million on this movie.
Which is already low for them.
Right. And factor in a $21.75 million California tax credit, and the net cost drops to $144 million. For a modern marquee Star Wars theatrical release, that isn't just lean, that is practically indie filmmaking. It is literally the cheapest Disney-era Star Wars film on the books.
It really is. And the mechanism behind that number is entirely technological. It's driven by how Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni weaponized the volume.
Which is their stagecraft setup, right?
Exactly. The Unreal Engine 4 and 5 setup they pioneered for the TV series. Instead of spending tens of millions flying a crew of 500 people to Iceland to shoot an ice planet, they bring the ice planet into a soundstage in Manhattan Beach.
I always have to push back a bit, though, when people lump the volume in with traditional green screen. With a green screen, you are lighting a sterile room and, hoping the post-production team can match the physics of the light later.
Which usually looks a bit off.
Yeah, especially when you are shooting a protagonist who is covered head to toe in highly reflective chrome armor. A green screen means he just reflects green light.
Right. He'd look like a giant glow stick.
Exactly. But the volume renders the background environment in real time, tracking the parallax of the camera lens, and physically pumps the accurate environmental light directly onto the Beskar. The reflections are real.
And that technological efficiency fundamentally rewrites the creative constraints of the film. Think about George Lucas shooting the original 1977 film. He was inventing new camera rigs and cannibalizing old model kits because he just didn't have the money to do it any other way.
Right. Necessity is the mother of invention.
Exactly. Limitations force filmmakers to prioritize practical, character-driven storytelling over spectacle. By keeping the production entirely in California and leveraging this tech, they stripped away the suffocating financial pressure that demands a film clear $1 billion just to break even.
So let me ask you this. Does a quote-unquote cheap Star Wars movie worry you? Or is this actually a brilliant return to George Lucas's original indie filmmaking philosophy, where limitations breed creativity?
I'd absolutely argue it's the latter. They took what was originally written as the script for Season 4, and after looking at the post-strike landscape and, the 7-year theatrical drought for Star Wars, they restructured it into this 2-hour event.
The challenge there is monumental, though. You have to satisfy the diehards who know the exact lineage of the Darksaber, while simultaneously providing a clean entry point for a 12-year-old kid who hasn't seen a Star Wars movie in theaters since they were in kindergarten.
It's a tough balance.
Yeah.
But the opening sequence on the icy planet Payugan is engineered specifically to thread that needle. We drop right into the action.
Yeah, no text crawl needed.
Right. Din Djarin trudges through this hostile, frozen wasteland to take down Commander Barrow and his Imperial Shadow Council remnant. You immediately understand the stakes, the tone, and the sheer lethality of the protagonist.
It is a phenomenal visual echo of the very first episode of the series. And the production design team wastes absolutely no time flexing the cinematic budget on the details.
Oh, for sure.
We get that brilliant snow-modified mouse droid buzzing through the ice, and then the sheer terror of an Imperial AT-RT walker stomping into frame. I mean, that's the first time we've seen one on the big screen. The texture of the snow, the weight of the walker, it instantly signals that we are operating on a different visual plane than television.
And that upgrade in scale carries directly into the first major narrative pivot.
Yeah.
After Pagodan, Din reports back to his New Republic handlers. But instead of dealing with the usual desperate underworld fixers in some grimy cantina, he is sitting in a sterile bureaucratic briefing with Colonel Ward.
Played by the legendary Sigourney Weaver.
Yes.
Her energy changes the entire temperature of the room. She plays Ward as a veteran rebel X-Wing pilot who has survived the war and now operates with this clinical, almost detached, businesslike respect for Din. She doesn't view him with awe or suspicion. To her, he is simply an asset.
A contract.
Exactly. And as an advance for the massive extraction mission she assigns him, she hands over the keys to a ship. But it isn't a shiny New Republic cruiser. It's a stock, vintage Razor Crest, a replacement for his destroyed ship pulled from an Imperial hoarder's impound lot.
A crucial detail here from the production notes confirms that Din's custom N1 starfighter is still safe and sound, parked at their homestead on Navarro. But the N1 just doesn't fit the parameters of a deep cover extraction.
Well, think about the pure functionality of those two ships. The N1 is a flashy weekend sports car. It is aggressively fast, stripped down, and turns heads wherever it goes. But there is absolutely zero cargo space.
None at all.
Right. And now Space Dad is raising a growing kid, and he has been tasked with extracting a high-value target. He desperately needed the reliable minivan back. The Razor Crest is a mobile home, an armory, and a holding cell, all wrapped into one ugly utilitarian haul.
He definitely needs every inch of that cargo space because the target Colonel Ward wants extracted is Rudda the Hutt.
Jabba's.
Exactly. Jabba's son, now fully grown. The New Republic needs intel on an Imperial warlord, and Rada has it. Jeremy Allen White steps into this role, bringing an incredibly volatile kinetic intensity to a character we last saw as an infant in a backpack during the Clone Wars era.
And just setting out on this mission opens up the galactic map and gives us these jaw-dropping cinematic cameos that expand the lore. We see Zeb Orrelios flying a New Republic U-Wing, making the theatrical debut from the Rebels animated series.
Which was so cool to see in live action.
Totally. But the cameo that demands a full dissection is the Ardenian informant. Because the voice coming out of that four-armed alien is Martin Scorsese.
It's wild. The meta layers of film history baked into that single casting choice are staggering. Martin Scorsese has been highly vocal in his critique of franchise blockbusters, famously saying Marvel films are theme park rides, not cinema.
Yeah, he caused quite a stir with that.
So having him step into the sound booth to voice an alien in a Star Wars movie is a masterclass in self-aware casting.
It doesn't stop at the voice casting, though. The visual framing of that entire sequence is a direct, undeniable homage to Apocalypse Now. And when you trace the lineage of that film, the meta-commentary gets even deeper.
Oh, absolutely.
George Lucas and Francis Ford Coppola founded American Zoetrope together to escape the Hollywood machine. Lucas was originally supposed to direct Apocalypse Now before Coppola took the reins. Scorsese is a core pillar of that same 1970s new Hollywood movement.
Right.
So Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni managed to take a director who champions traditional cinema, cast him in a visual recreation of a new Hollywood masterpiece, and place it seamlessly inside the universe George Lucas built.
And they put him in an Ardenian suit, the exact same species Favreau himself voiced in Solo. It's a brilliant love letter to the directors who shaped modern filmmaking, disguised as a fun Easter egg.
Speaking of the physical demands of filmmaking, the leap to theatrical completely altered the reality for the performers under the armor. Pedro Pascal provides the voice and face, but we really have to talk about the physical performers, Brendan Wayne and Lateef Crowder.
They secured historic third and fourth billing in the credits, which is virtually unheard of for physical doubles.
And they earned every inch of that billing. The demands of IMAX lenses meant the costume department couldn't rely on the lighter, television-friendly materials that look fine under compression. The armor had to read as dense, battle-worn metal on a massive screen. The weight of the Mandalorian suit jumped from 48 pounds during the series to a punishing 62 pounds for the film.
You hear 62 pounds and you might think of a heavy backpack. But this is 62 pounds of rigid, joint-restricting plating distributed across the entire body. Wayne and Crowder were sweating through 2 complete undersuits a day under the hot stage lights.
That sounds miserable.
It is. And despite that restriction, Crowder infused his mastery of capoeira, the Brazilian martial art, into the fight choreography. He blends those fluid, sweeping kicks with Din's rigid Western fighter aesthetic perfectly.
You know, people constantly argue that acting requires a visible face. I completely push back on that premise. When a performer is carrying 62 pounds of metal, the way they shift their weight, the subtle droop of the shoulders to convey exhaustion, or the sudden rigidness of the spine to convey a threat, that 62-pound physical performance is the character.
Oh, I totally agree. The helmet itself becomes an instrument. The visor acts much like the brim of a cowboy hat used to convey emotion in a classic Western. A downward tilt is brooding or sorrowful, while a slight upward tilt is an unspoken challenge.
You take a performer operating under those grueling physical limitations, and then you drop them into the most ambitious practical set piece in the film, the infiltration of the AT-8 walker.
Yeah, the production team built a full-scale practical AT-AT set, the first one built since The Empire Strikes Back in 1980.
And building practical sets at that scale changes the physics of the action. When the performers are interacting with real steel corridors rather than green boxes, the momentum and the impact of the choreography register differently on camera.
It forces a gritty, visceral reality into the sequence.
It results in this breathless, one-take hallway fight. It feels entirely reminiscent of those Daredevil hallway scenes, but instead of a vigilante, it's a fully armored Mandalorian tearing through Imperial troopers in a confined space.
And just to inject a bit of levity into all that carnage, Dave Filoni has a hilarious cameo sitting right there in the AT-AT cockpit.
Yes, but what stood out to me during that brutal close-quarters combat wasn't just the choreography, it was the weapon. Din isn't carrying the darksaber. He is carving his way through that hallway using a Beskar short sword.
The absence of the darksaber is a critical character statement. The darksaber is a political artifact. To wield it is to invite the burden of ruling Mandalore, a fate Din Djarin spent years actively resisting.
Right, he never wanted it.
Exactly. The destruction of Darksaber freed him from that political orbit. Using a Beskar short sword, instead, symbolizes his rejection of political leadership to remain a pure, unencumbered warrior.
That rejection of a forced destiny is the thematic glue of the entire film. Because as Din pushes his physical limits in the second half of the movie, the narrative focus shifts heavily toward Grogu's perspective and highlights themes of legacy and breaking family cycles.
And this is where Jeremy Allen White's portrayal of Rada truly shines. Rada isn't just a generic Hutt gangster. He is a character suffocating under the weight of his own lineage. He's trying to break free from the gravitational pull of his family's criminal sins.
And I think his internal conflict is the mirror image of Grogu's journey, isn't it?
Perfectly mirrored. Rada's attempt to escape his dark family legacy connects directly to Grogu. Both characters are grappling with the biological and historical expectations of what their species or lineage dictates they should be. Rada is expected to be a crime lord, and Grogu is expected to be a Jedi.
We watch Grogu walk away from Luke Skywalker's academy. In this film, we witness the absolute finality of that decision. Grogu receives his own custom-forged Beskar armor, solidifying his choice of the Mandalorian path over the Jedi.
And the physical manifestation of that choice is matched by a terrifying escalation in his abilities. We see moments of immense power, like casually lifting a massive land speeder to crush a new Republic counterattack.
But there is a sequence that fundamentally shifts how we view him. During a moment of sheer panic and anger, Grogu aggressively uses the Force to crush an Imperial mouse droid.
Yeah, that was intense.
It isn't a defensive push, it is a destructive act, tinged heavily with the dark side. It is a glaring reminder that while he chose the Mandalorian path, he still possesses this raw, untrained connection to an energy field his father does not understand.
It forces the audience to confront the danger of his situation. Din Djarin can teach him how to track a bounty, but he cannot teach him spiritual discipline.
Despite that underlying tension, the film delivers the ultimate emotional payoff for their dynamic. After years of Din swatting Grogu's hands away from the control panels, Din finally allows Grogu to help co-pilot the ship.
It is a massive step in their father-son relationship. He elevates Grogu from a piece of cargo to an equal partner.
And executing those delicate emotional beats requires puppetry magic so perfect the audience forgets they are watching special effects. Grogu is operated simultaneously by 5 puppeteers hidden just out of frame.
Which is incredibly hard to coordinate.
Mind-bogglingly hard. Sigourney Weaver was actually so taken by the puppet that she felt he was completely alive on set. And that dedication to practical effects gives us fun visual gags, too, like the tiny Anzellans, Babu Frick species, flying a ship with Grogu crammed in the back.
It's hilarious. But we also bring the deep dive to a close by looking at how the film's auditory experience ties the whole theatrical event together. Ludwig Göransson returns for the music, and he expands from television constraints to a massive 106-piece orchestra and a 64-person choir.
Pedro Pascal actually called the score a, quote, total dance party that drives tension rather than just supporting it.
It really acts as a propulsive engine for the film.
The score is towering, and the practical sets are gorgeous. Yet we have to address the critical reception. Some critics felt the plot resembled a repetitive fetch quest video game structure. Go to objective, secure, return. They felt it played out like an extended TV episode.
The critique holds weight if you're looking for deep, multi-layered New Republic Senate politics. The plot is stubbornly linear.
But let me ask you, and the listeners at home, is a video game structure really a flaw for a Star Wars movie? I'd argue that if the action is practical and the emotional father-son beats land, a simple, propulsive plot might be exactly what the franchise needed to get back on track.
There is immense value in executing a simple premise perfectly. And regardless of the structural debate, we have to celebrate a historic milestone. Pedro Pascal became the first Latino actor to receive top billing in a Star Wars theatrical film.
Absolutely, it's a huge achievement. So we've broken down the indie budget philosophy, the staggering 62-pound physical toll, the deep-cut cameos, and Grogu's embrace of Beskar armor. But before we wrap up, there is a final provocative thought we want to leave you with to mull over.
It loops back to that moment with the mouse droid.
Exactly. Grogu aggressively force-crushed that droid out of fear and anger. Years ago, Ahsoka Tano explicitly refused to train him because she sensed this exact dark side vulnerability. She knew fear was a conduit to the dark side.
She definitely saw the warning sign.
Now, Grogu is eschewing Jedi robes for Beskar armor, embracing the path of a warrior. What happens to the galaxy when a Mandalorian apprentice possesses unchecked, dark side-leaning force powers?
The line between protector and conqueror is about to get terrifyingly thin.
And that wraps our deep dive into the Mandalorian and Grogu. If you enjoyed joining us for this trip back to a galaxy far, far away, follow Roll Credits and share it with your fellow movie fans. And let us know what film we should cover next, old or new. We'll be back soon with more trivia, more movie magic, and maybe a few more bounty hunts.